Yeah, hi. Andy Gregory from the GTMC, representing the business travel trade in the UK. We have done a couple of surveys in the past year, both regarding expansion of air capacity in the southeast and the regions, and it very conclusively shows what I think a number of people said earlier on, that business travellers will always prefer travelling from their local airport, wherever that may be. But there's been some discussion this afternoon about carbon emissions, it was mentioned by Sir Howard just recently, and how the industry itself needs to come forward with a better proposition of how it's going to tackle that issue. Can you give any more detail as to maybe here in Manchester or elsewhere regionally how it's possible for the industry to show what the detrimental effect excessive car journeys have? Not just the air transport industry, but excessive car journeys of people travelling to airports which are much further than they would wish to travel to actually board their flights, and what a detrimental effect that has. So how much more public investment there should be in public transport and accessibility for airports. And the second point really was something, again, I think which you touched on, but surely the point as well about increased connectivity for the regions and for the UK is not just that connectivity is increased per se, but that the UK starts doing business with the right people and to get it out of recession. And I think it's been shown fairly conclusively that the UK needs to do more business with the BRIC countries, with the developing nations, than to continue to do business with countries such as mainly Europe, where the economies are still struggling.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps the last one. Bear in mind that whilst I know a bit about this, I'm not an expert, but I think in terms of links with the BRIC countries, particularly South America, I think I might throw Mexico into that as well. Clearly, if we're going to start serving those areas, then there need to be new slots for serving those. In the short term, certainly, the only part of the country that is likely to provide sufficient throughput to drive those routes is likely to be London, and I think we have to be realistic about that, so we need capacity there. But there are other, I think they're described as thicker routes, where it will be quite possible for a lot of those thicker routes to be diverted to Manchester, to Birmingham, to Edinburgh and Glasgow to be able to service those. So actually with a bit of planning you get a win-win out of that. What that does is potentially reduces your surface emissions that you were talking about, but that also, something I did talk about, to properly support that, there ought to be far more investment into ground transport links into our airports, and to a certain extent, rather than, we would ought to be expecting airports to contribute to that. And we've got a new tram line to Manchester Airport just opened, and Manchester Airport, quite rightly, made a contribution to funding that, and I think we ought to be looking that way rather than the other way around. But ultimately, aviation at the moment is most of the emissions are up there rather than down here. Something Sir Howard did talk about is that we do need lighter, far more fuel efficient planes, because ultimately that's the only way we can continue to grow, and there is a growing capacity to fly and keep emissions down at the same time.
Further questions to Sir Howard, gentleman right at the back, and whilst we're getting a microphone to the gentleman right at the back, can I urge you to continue tweeting, please, hashtag #RunwaysUK. Do keep texting your views on the conference. Are you ready? Have you got a microphone, sir?
Yes, I have. With the greatest respect to Richard, I think you've been a tad disingenuous. You made a very impassioned speech there in favour of regional airports, and particularly Manchester. Well, you had the opportunity to do that while Sir Howard was preparing his interim report and assessing the shortlist. It's too late to start backtracking now. What you did was put all your eggs in the basket of Stansted Airport and the 4 runways that you wanted there. In fact, MAG became part of the same self-serving southern monopoly that you just described. Birmingham stood up for itself and made the very points you're making now. And in fact, I would say probably geared themselves to Sir Howard, slightly more than Magna.
No, I don't think I was disingenuous at all. First of all, I made it clear I was talking on behalf of the core cities, and talk generally about the regional airports and the fact they all have regional airports. So I kind of avoided London Stansted altogether because it's not within the purview of the platform I'm speaking on today. The only thing I would say about London Stansted, it's far from being a monopoly. It does have lots and lots of spare capacity, but since it's been owned by Manchester Airport Group, it's gone from an airport in decline to an airport that is now growing and growing very, very rapidly.
Any further questions to Sir Richard Leese? Right, well thank you very much indeed, Sir Richard, for your contributions this afternoon.